We would just love to talk about your story as a dentist, growing a personal brand.
Personal branding comes into play with the personal development portion because there is something called a unique value proposition in business. What that means is it's a combination of your personal interests, passions, along with your clinical expertise. So you got to find and marry those two. What brings us joy within our profession, and how are we going to use that to attract the right patients? This goes hand in hand for anyone who's seeking fulfillment within their career long term.
When was the time when it really blew up? Like, I mean, you're now
Yeah.
in 70K, right?
It really blew up throughout dental schools. I think it was just me being active and authentic. They're going to value that. So you're going to get that return, and that's through loyalty, trust.
I think people need to be involved. That's why you see all the big companies that first had a, let's say, company Instagram switching to their CEO having an Instagram, because people buy from people.
Welcome to another episode of the Dental Dialogue. Now, I'm very excited for this one. We've been trying to get this person on the podcast for some time. I'm excited that we finally have been able to do it, and especially in person. We have the lovely co-host over at Dental Talk 360, Melanie Silvestrini.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I'm really excited to be here in person as well. So it's even better that we get to talk live.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we are excited, and luckily now even in person. And we would just love to talk about your story as a dentist, also growing a personal brand, which is, I think, one of the things that a lot of dentists overlook, and especially the young dentists are taking more serious. And yeah, we would just love to talk about the tips and tricks that you might have for other people. If you could just give a brief introduction of you, how you became a dentist, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very passionate about the topic of personal branding, especially because I realized its importance when I finished dental school and I started my career. So I actually wanted to be a dentist since I was 7. I watched my mother get a few veneers done on her upper arch, and the dentist let me shadow in the office. So it was
I thought you were going to say the dentist
very
let you
beautiful.
put a veneer on.
No, no, not at 7 years old, but I did imagine it. And so that was a pivotal moment for me as a kid. I was very artistic, and I knew that I needed to do something with my hands all the time. So I also paint. So dentistry kind of fell into my hands in that way, and I'm very grateful for it because I'm able to make not only instantaneous results, but I'm able to really impact and help the overall health of patients. Whether we talk about dental oral health, we're talking about systemic connections. So that's something that is more evolving, and a lot of people are becoming more knowledgeable about. But as I went to dental school, I went to Tufts in Boston. And I went straight through all of my education. I was a makeup artist in my undergraduate studies. And so I was working with clients, I was working with my hands, I was working for bridal parties. And so when dental school came around, I was so excited, especially since I got into a beautiful school. I thought everything was going to fall into place, and I didn't put much attention into what is necessary after I leave school. So I was in autopilot, and many students are in this mode. You're just trying to survive. You're trying to accomplish the degree. You want to achieve the degree. People are not thinking, what am I going to do long term? How am I going to get there? And that's okay. But we really should put more emphasis during our training years on personal development, because without nurturing that part of ourselves, it's going to be very difficult to find your niche and find your placement within your career when you finish. So that is a common issue that I found, I faced as well. I went to a general practice residency program, so I did more surgical training after school, and it was working in a trauma 1 hospital, sleeping in the hospital overnights. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you get in the grind. You get in the grind, and then you get your first job, and then you're so green, right? So you're immediately either not trusted by the people who are hiring you, or perhaps patients. And then what does that lead to? Yourself. Do you trust yourself? So we get into this mentality of wow, I just spent all of this money, all of this time. I was so passionate, but you feel a little disheartened. And this happens for every graduate when they finish. A lot of them don't like to talk about it. So personal branding comes into play with the personal development portion, because there is something called a unique value proposition in business. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that term. And we have to nurture that term, because what that means is it's a combination of your personal interests, passions, along with your clinical expertise. So you got to find and marry those two. A lot of them focus too much on the clinical, and we're not able to nurture the personal development side of us. What makes us authentically us? What brings us joy within our profession? And how are we going to use that to attract the right patients, the right clients, the right employers, the right partners? This goes hand in hand for anyone who's seeking fulfillment within their career long term.
With our podcast Dental Dialogue, we interview the biggest and most well-known dentists from all around the world. So if you want to hear about their experience of building a personal brand, growing their clinics, and helping more people around the world to get back their smiles, don't forget to check out our podcast. The link is in the description down below. Now enjoy the rest of the video. How did that start out for you? Like, when was the day that you woke up and you said, I will give the social media or personal brand thing a try?
First day of dental school.
So you started
first day
documenting
of dental school.
My first day of dental school.
I think that's the classic way how most people start, isn't it?
But what's the reason why? Because I'm thinking that, is it not that after dental school you realize that, oh, there's something a little bit different here? So why did you start the social media from the beginning?
I think it was unintentional, actually. I had already an interest in sharing knowledge and education. So even before dental school, I wanted to actually be in a position where I can teach people how I got into dental school, something as simple as that. And I bought my first camera, my first DSLR camera. I started learning all of this videography.
Do you remember what it was? What camera it was?
I still have it, and
What
I
is
use it? A Canon 80D.
Oh, okay.
And I use it for my dental photography to this day.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I need to upgrade, but anyways, that'll happen.
Yeah.
So that was the first camera I bought, and I remember I bought it shortly before I got into dental school. And I didn't get to use it the way I wanted to, because once I started, I had to move to Boston. I was starting a whole new life, a whole new chapter, and I left that side behind. But I knew that there was a part of me that had that inner interest to help other people learn what I have learned kind of the hard way. That was just something personal to me. And so in dental school, I didn't get to do the volume that I wanted to, but I did start my social media journey where I started thinking, wow, imagine I graduate and maybe I could eventually in the future, maybe I could have a practice one day. Because these things get brought up when people are talking to you. Oh, what do you want to do after you graduate? Some people ask.
Yeah.
And people are shy to say, I want to be my own boss. I want to own this. I want to be an entrepreneur. People are, they will hold it in. They will hold it in. And for me, I did hold it in, but it helped me think internally. And I was always into wellness and meditation, and that component of it also helped me become more knowledgeable about who I am, why I am here, and what do I want to give. So every year this changed, and it came from journaling. It came from reading, exploring my curiosities and things that brought me joy. So that's how I started that journey. And you see, I didn't say that I jump-started with the internet marketing. While I did have an involvement, I'm talking more about that deeper development, and that's where it started.
All right. And how would you say, what changed for you? When was the time when it really blew up? Like, I mean, you're now on 70K, right? On IG?
So it really blew up, actually, throughout dental school. It started to grow to 10K, for example. And I don't even know how it happened, to be honest. I think it was just me being active and authentic, sharing my journey, really. And not everyone has to do that to gain a following. I think what it comes down to is, are you being authentic with yourself? And if you can do that and you are able to display yourself in the best way to others and the best way to yourself, people are going to just read into that. They're going to value that you're giving out. So you're going to get that return, and that's through loyalty, trust. But the personal branding component developed more when I was in my residency program. As I said, I was in the hospital. So I remember this moment vividly, and I actually spoke about it during a speaking event I did in Dallas. I spoke to a bunch of dentists about this, and I remember one time I was sitting in the on-call room, and I was just thinking to myself, I know I have to go through this, but I actually don't have to. I'm doing it because I wanted to advance my training. And I was in the heart of New York City, just in this on-call room, late at night, with my pager, and I have this sheet of paper, and I'm just developing. I'm like, okay, don't worry about the now. It's not fun, but think about, what are you going to do when you leave here? So I was thinking, okay, let's think, what's my next step? What brings me joy? It was education. And I thought, but I'm so multi-passionate. Everyone talks about choosing your niche, choosing this, narrowing down, and that's okay. But sometimes you have to broaden your scope of interests and iron it out, write it down, find the similarities between them. So I literally have this sheet of paper. It is a Venn diagram of these 3 main areas of interest for me personally. And within that, I had little tree arrows growing that developed the topic more. And this developed into what I wanted to be my content strategy for knowledge that I can share with an audience. And I started developing my logo. My logo, personal logo, was developed by myself. And I did the graphic design. I chose a series of colors that would be my brand colors. I took so many hours and so many days constantly revising it, and that was something that brought me so much joy. So I kept going back, and I realized how much I enjoyed it. So this was my brand that was soon to be developed, and I took my time with it. But I knew that there had to be something to represent me as a clinician, as a provider, and as me. And that's what differentiated me from a lot of younger dentists who were in my same boat.
Yeah. And how would you say did that play out in terms of now also getting new patients? Because that's what we want to show the people, what is possible. Because so many colleagues of ours don't believe in what social media can actually do for you as a dentist. Yeah.
Social media is very valuable if you're using it in the right way. A lot of people shy away from it because they think, especially in the older generations, they don't have the most positive view on it, but they have to spend more time seeing the types of content that's out there that is actually very valuable. So with that comes education, but also displaying yourself authentically. So as a dentist, you can either be an associate, you can be an entrepreneur without clinical practice, or you can be a business owner with clinical practice. You can be entrepreneur, business owner, partial clinical, and scaling. So think about this avatar that is so dynamic. The personal brand is very applicable to all of these different avatars. And because of that, it all comes down to, what are people able to understand about you? Not only people as an audience, colleagues, but also clients. So when you're able to not only show yourself as a person, as a human being, these are the qualities that I have, this is the self-awareness that I have, and this is all that I enjoy to do, you incorporate that with your profession and your dentistry, for example. Dentistry is an art. So if you can find a way to connect the two and then display that to others in a strategic way, that's how you're going to build trust, loyalty, connection with potential patients. They're going to start to know you as that person who posts that video that way. You have this name associated, this logo, very memorable. Something connects all of these things about you together. That's the brand. So people can remember the brand when it is cohesive and it is on point with who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that we hear that quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Recent days, it has to be congruent.
That's the thing. Congruency is key, and you rightly said, social media can help a lot in terms of building different aspects, especially with dentistry. You can grow yourself on many different aspects,
Yes.
clinically and also entrepreneurial.
Yes.
How does that look like for you growing your social media and in those different aspects of things that you do? How did they spur about?
Entrepreneurship, particularly?
All of them, I guess, because I'm guessing that social media has helped, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
It has
yeah.
helped you clinically as well.
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely has, especially being within a network of other dentists. But you realize when you do a case, for example, a nice case that you're very proud of, and you get to document it, how do you want to display that to the world? And I think of that as every post that we create is a story. A story for yourself, a story for the patient, a story for the transformation that you've done. Now, we don't always have to do big transformations to display our work. But the idea behind what I'm trying to explain is that there is a story behind it. So authentic storytelling is how we can constantly develop and nurture our social media presence and also connect our clinical. It's not favorable to only post your dental or your clinical work, because then people don't really get to know who you are, who is the provider behind all of it. So you don't have to be so extroverted and doing podcasts and doing all these events, speaking to people, but you have to at least know what a brand is, because I'm talking about all those people who scale, those business owners who kind of want to stay behind the scenes. They don't want people to know who they are. But at the end of the day, if they are able to use their personal development passions and interests to nurture and develop the brand that they want to scale, then their inherent qualities are going to display through the brand that they're trying to
Yeah.
scale. Does that make sense? I know that's
yeah,
a
I
little
think
complex.
Like Elon Musk,
I
for
think,
example.
I think it will
there
grow.
you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love
He,
that.
whatever
Yeah.
he starts
Yes.
now, whatever he touches is
He
gold.
has a brand.
Because of him specifically. People
Yes.
like his
100%.
personality.
Yes.
People like
Yeah.
his work ethic. And so I was reading somewhere that I'm butchering this completely because I don't know exactly what he does, but that he's created like a supercomputer, and he created it in 11 days, something that a supercomputer expert said that should take 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
All because he started the company and he managed to recruit the best people
Yeah, because
in the
of
industry
him.
because of him.
Yeah.
Because of his
See?
brand, because people just want to be involved with
Exactly.
him.
Yeah.
So you rightly said.
Yeah.
Like,
And
Yeah.
how do we think Elon Musk started that?
Yeah, personal.
Yeah.
Like he just got started and was pretty transparent, and I think that's a big point.
He had a vision for
yeah.
himself
Yeah,
and then for the world.
yeah, and I think that when we apply this kind of what you said, especially where I think people need to be involved. That's why you see all the big companies that first had a, let's say, company Instagram, switching to their CEO having an Instagram, just documenting his day
Yeah.
and so on, because people buy from people,
Yeah.
and people like watching content from other people is so much more authentic. And the mistake loads of dentists do, I think, especially the older generation, they think they have to show their whole life. But if you look at all
Yes.
those people, like for example, I have a personal brand that I just started out now recently.
Great.
People think they know me completely,
Yeah.
but they don't know nothing. I have people in my
Uh-huh.
private circle who are so like, oh, you have to be careful,
Yeah.
just working. I'm like, look, this is what I show on my personal brand. I don't show my family on
Yeah.
there. I don't show like
Yeah,
close
exactly.
friends, and you can make a difference. So you can kind of find the middle of running your business, being transparent with the things that you want to, and just show
Yeah.
that
what
is enough.
What you're good at, what
Yeah,
you
exactly.
do for a career,
Yeah.
and what you're passionate about. These things can be connected. And we can talk about marketing, because branding is a form of marketing. It's authentic marketing, but there are also companies for dentists, especially here in the US, where they are working very heavily on Google click ads and all the ad spend, getting all of your leads. So a lot of money is put into that market because there is an ROI, but what's the definition of a lead? A lead, someone who is semi-interested, but what happens when they come to the office? Or what makes them want to come to the office?
That too.
So this is where the brand is very important. So
100%.
We can't have cookie cutter marketing for dentists, and a lot of them think that's the problem solver, when in reality it's much deeper than that. And I think that there can be a systemized way for dentists to start acknowledging this, nurturing this, and making something of it for themselves.
100%. And I think especially in dentistry, because it's one of the things, I read something that is like the most feared person, like when we don't talk about criminals, but from the normal society, they are the most feared person. Like people, how often have you heard, oh, I'm so afraid, like every morning it's normal, you know?
I know.
You just meet someone and he tells into your face he's afraid of you right now. You
treat it with love and compassion. You have to remind yourself. But this happens every day. Every single day. And there are days where I'm like, wow, did I choose a profession where I have to convince people to do something they don't want to do?
You did.
I mean, you get into that mentality, and it talking from a 7-year-old standpoint, where I was so excited to become a dentist, and then you go through the hardship, you get your degree, and then that's it. Some people hate you. And you think about, so what is the reason? Well, I think it's based off of previous experience, of 100%. Course, fear of unknown, but a huge percentage of that is prior negative experience or experiencing it secondhand negatively. So I hope that changes within
I think
generation.
Social media
will change that. Once you humanize things. Once you
humanize.
That's the thing, because when there's no face behind the doctor, they in their mind, they're just imagining the instruments going in their mouth, and then the drills and the sounds and the previous experience that they've had, or maybe somebody else has had, as you said. But once they start to see the social media, the people behind the social media accounts or behind the practice, and they start to see the more human aspect to it, then they will be like, people get a lot more calm.
Because it's also like when we see the funnel of marketing, like you mentioned before, generating leads, that's exactly what happens. So it's another step when, for example, someone fills out a form, they get sent the social media beforehand, they can have a look, they're like, wow, this is so nice. He explains how different treatments are being performed, and then it takes their fear a bit more. They see the clinic, they see the front desk stuff already, they're like, they gain their trust. And I think it helps not only for people to show up more, but second of all, to be much more comfortable on the first visit, because they kind of think they know the practitioner.
Yes, and this has happened to me before, actually. I've had a few patients who walked in the door who already knew some things about me as a clinician. And that was very interesting. That happened for the first time last year. And they felt automatically comfortable. They knew what they were walking into without getting dentistry done. And that's a beautiful thing. If you can reach that or achieve that as a clinician, I think you've done a great job. And there are also group practice models, which I'm sure you're aware of, where there is one lead dentist who works less days, and then there are associate dentists. So now these dentists, and this is very common, especially in this generation of dentists, where they're often underrepresented or not represented at all. And what that means is they are being fed procedures that are treatment planned by another provider or an owner, and they are just fed the procedures to do without too much autonomy, without too much say. And this turns into a mill, a factory, where the dentist then starts to become unfulfilled, loses sight of why they chose this profession, and they're just chasing a paycheck at that point.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to highlight, because this is also relevant to that market, is even though you can own a practice or have multiple practices, I think that the associates within the practice need to have their own brands within the brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you shouldn't work somewhere that you're not in alignment with.
Yeah, especially also because I think the problem that comes up in some practices nowadays, it can happen when there's a new dentist coming in.
Yeah.
Like let's say straight from med school, dental
Right,
school,
right.
has a brand, and he will pull the whole clinic basically.
Yeah.
Like bring patients in, and he just
Yes.
that will be very interesting how
Yeah.
that's gonna end up. Like
When
in the
you
future.
said you have to be aligned with the practice, could you dive a bit deeper into that? What do you
Yeah.
mean by that?
Yeah, so once you know what type of dentist are you, what type of dentistry do you want to do, and know your core values. So compassion, you're compassionate, you're adventurous, any adjective to describe yourself. And this is personal development as well. But when you're able to connect with an employer, for example, or see the practice business model, you want to see, is this in alignment with those core values? Really, that's what it comes down to. And how do they handle the hardship within the practice? Or is this similar to how I would? What are the morals within the practice? What's the mission statement? So think of yourself as a single person business. And it's going to be so much easier to attract the right employer without going on Indeed or an ad, which I can speak for. You will also receive internal referrals easily. Once people know this is the person you are, they're going to help connect you. Hey, I think you would work well here. I think you would work well with this dentist. And this is how I built my career. This is exactly how I moved from New York City to Miami. It was an employment opportunity, actually,
All right.
that I was connected to. And it's okay to be an associate dentist. It's fine. Not everyone is going to start a practice right away, but some people have that vision, and you can still have all this autonomy, this fulfillment within a partnership, within a business model where you are working for someone. But once you think collaboratively with having your similar values in alignment, it's all going to fall into place.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I think that's something that I asked you to briefly go over that a little bit, because I think that's something that a lot of students or people coming out of dental school do not think about.
I know.
They think about the paycheck.
I know.
How close it is. How many hours am I going to work? Okay, let's go. And I know that there will be a lot of, maybe you could speak on this, but it could really affect your career moving forward if you choose the wrong person to work under.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Do you have experience that way?
Yeah. Everything you're saying is like, I've lived it. I know exactly what you're talking about. And this is why I'm so passionate about it, because you shouldn't ever have to feel like you are kind of like stuck behind the scenes of something that you never really wanted anything to do with because of a paycheck, or having no other option, or feeling afraid to look for other options, or not knowing how to look for other options. It all comes down to you have to remind yourself like who you are, and what do you want for your life. It really comes down to that. And a lot of medical professionals get a little lost in that, because some can have these bigger grandiose visions for themselves and feel small, because what is realistic in society, what is most commonly achieved, what is easier to achieve at the very moment, discerning your short-term goals and how they can lead to your long-term is really what people need to connect to more often. When you're in school, you can do this, but it's looking up to people as well, people that are achieving some things that you wish you could, and look at them with compassion, curiosity, and don't be afraid to reach out. The more you're putting yourself out there to connect with those individuals, it's going to have an ROI on your life and your career as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I do agree. Yeah, that's what we saw. I think that's one thing I realized when I was in dental school, at the end, everyone was talking about, how much money they're gonna make soon.
I know.
And the only thing we did was like, you know what? For now, we're gonna take 1 year off. Just gonna go deeper into the marketing side.
I love that.
And I don't know, because life is a marathon, not a sprint. Same in business. When you want to be successful, I think you have to look you never know what's about to come, but you should find a roadmap that brings you fastest on the long run from A to Z, not on the short term. And that's when I realized I fall behind clinically, that's true, but the problem that I see is that most people don't learn nothing about the business side of dentistry in school, like
no
zero.
one teaches it to you. I know. So once you learn the principles of a business within yourself, one person business, you'll be ready to apply that to a bigger model. And I think that's where we need educational resources to help these younger dentists as well, and people who are already 10 years out, established in their careers. It's never too late to start this journey, and it's not difficult as people may think. It's not very difficult at all, actually. It takes some guidance, and so I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I hope to also be able to add value to others as well. But sometimes you need to create a system, you know, and that'll be easier, especially for medical professionals, to think, okay, we're used to systems and learning that way, so why don't we help people think of this as a system and apply it to their life and career?
100%. And I think you've definitely, during this podcast, you've definitely been helpful for
100%.
For students, for people also coming out, and especially that part where, you know, when we spoke a little bit about finding a job also, and finding the right job for you, which will allow you to then further grow your career, not just clinically, but in all different aspects. I think that's a huge takeaway that nobody's thinking about.
No one's thinking about it.
That's why we started this, and why we are happy that we have people like you who are coming on and just talk about their experience. I think this will inspire a lot of people to also start their personal brand, start their self-development, and to look into those things that we just mentioned. That brings us to the end of this amazing episode.
Thank you.
All your links will be also below the video. For everyone who's interested, go and check it out. You will have someone who you can just see as an example, see how they build their brand. And don't forget to subscribe as well if you don't want to miss out on further episodes. And we see you in the next one. Bye bye.